Mr. Mistry, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. I think the special window is something that the industry has been discussing and maybe even demanding, and the finance minister has lent, a generous year. What do you make of the primary announcement before we get into the details?
Well, I think there are two important announcements on housing. One is on the external commercial borrowing.
Yes.
And the other is on the setting up of the fund. Now, there are a number of projects, huge number of projects, which are stuck, as we know, which are stuck for last mile funding, where 60, 70, 80% of the project has got done, and then the developer, for whatever reason, has run short of money and therefore is not able to complete the project. So establishment of a fund like this, which is going to be professionally managed and which would identify these kind of projects which are stuck and would put in money into these projects, is very, very definitely a very welcome step. So it should, to a great extent, alleviate the problem that some of the stuck projects are having. The process needs to be expedited, which I'm sure it will get done. And the money needs to be put out as soon as possible, because my fear is that when a project is stuck, it is stuck because of lack of funding. Now, if it is stuck because of lack of funding, and technically if 3 installments don't get paid to the bank which has lent money for the project, the loan gets classified as a non-performing loan. And if it gets classified as a non-performing loan, my understanding is that money from this project, this fund, will not be available. So I think that is something we need to look at.
Mr. Mistry, I think a couple of questions on how you've assessed or understood what the finance minister has announced with particular reference to this fund that we're discussing. We'll get to the ECB matter in just a bit. But when she means last mile funding, I think she suggested projects that have been funded up to 60% and the rest which is yet not either available in the marketplace or the builder or the developer is having some trouble. Right. Is that how you understood it as well? So where the remaining portion is 40%?
Yeah, that's the way I understood it. The way I understood it is that 60% of the project has got completed. The last mile funding is required to complete the balance. Oh. Now, there'll be lots of projects where not just 60, 70, 75% is completed.
And so she's also referenced the fact that these would be non-NPA as well as non-NCLT projects, non-NCLT being those that have not been admitted to insolvency resolution proceedings. My point being that I can understand. You don't want to, as a government, interfere with a judicial proceeding that's ongoing in the IBC case. But when the reference is to non-NPA, could that, in a sense, limit the number of projects that might get assistance from such a fund?
My sense is we'll have to wait for the guidelines to come to understand what is meant when the finance minister said non-NPA, because an NPA is a technical thing. If a developer has been unable to pay 3 monthly installments, the loan gets classified as a non-performing loan or an NPA. So if it gets classified as a non-performing loan, then based on what the finance minister said, the funds will not be available from this fund which has got created. Money will not be available from this fund which has got created. But we'll have to understand what definition is being prescribed to the word NPA by which I'm sure will get clarified in the rules. It cannot just be a technical NPA. I can understand, as you said, that if a case has gone to NCLT, then let the legal process take over. But just because 3 installments have not got paid because the developer has run short of money, if those kind of cases also will not be eligible for this kind of funding, then we'll be restricting the number of projects that could get covered under the scheme.
That was my apprehension as well. The fund size at this point has been announced to be 10,000 crores to be contributed by the government of India, and roughly same amount from outside investors is what the finance ministry said. These outside investors could range from LIC to other private sector institutions, including sovereign funds. So I assume that they're also looking at maybe international contribution to this fund. So first, your comment on the number. We're looking at a fund that would range from 10 to 20,000 crores. Is that sufficient? And secondly, would institutions like HDFC, etc., be participant or willing to participate in a fund of this nature?
Well, first of all, to answer the second part first, if as the fund is going to be professionally managed and professionally run, we would probably look at making some contribution. What amount and all is something we need to think through, but we'd be happy to make some contribution. That's the first part. The second part is, your first question was what?
On the amount, sir, that is ranging between 10,000 crores to 20,000 crores.
If you get a fund of 10,000 crores and if you use a 0.3 times 0.3 leverage, you're looking at 0.3, 0.4 leverage, you're looking at about 14,000 crores, which is decent money. So I think that can go a long way in putting money into a lot of these kind of projects. So I think that's a good sum of money.
So if I can understand then, the overall impact of, let's say, I think they're saying 10,000 crores contributed by government. They're hopeful of a similar amount coming in from the private sector and external investors.
My understanding was 10,000, which includes half participation by the private sector and half by the public.
I'm reading from the point on the slide that the government actually displayed. I think the sentence there says fund size 10,000 crores to be contributed by Government of India and roughly same amount from outside investors.
I
so I think they're aiming for a 10 to 20,000 crore rupee fund. And then, like as you pointed out, there would be some leverage that's possible. So we're looking in the region of maybe say 10 to 23, 24,000 crores.
That is decent money. Very decent money.
If you can give us your assessment of the current problem that the real estate sector, especially the housing sector, is facing. And let's remember that this fund is only going to work for projects in affordable and middle income categories. The government estimated such units to be impacted by stalled construction to be in the region of about 3.5 lakh units. What is your understanding of the wide impact of a fund of this nature?
Well, there will be a number of projects where the last mile funding that is required is very, very small. It could be as small as 30 crores, 50 crores, 80 crores, 100 crores. Those kind of sums we are talking of. So if you are talking of a fund size which can run up to 20,000 crores, you are talking of a lot of projects, a huge number of projects which can get covered.
And you believe this is, this solution in terms of size, scope, scale, the fact that they hope it will be professionally managed, etc., will be a big palliative for the real estate sector right now, which is suffering from a variety of different problems?
I would certainly say this would be a huge boost to the real estate sector. However, I would add one more bit that we need some clarity on what the finance minister meant by saying that this would not apply to NPAs. Because my sense is that if a project is stalled, then it is stalled because of lack of liquidity. And if it is stalled because of lack of liquidity, then the project would not have been able to pay off the loans that were taken for the project on time, which therefore means that the loan could technically become an NPL. Now, every NPL loan doesn't get taken to NCLT.
Right.
Or doesn't get taken for, insolvency.
So your point being that, if they rule out all those projects that have been technically qualified as NPA, then the number of projects that can benefit from a fund like this will be considerably reduced.
I don't know about considerably reduced, but it would be reduced. I will not be able to quantify how much it will be reduced, but it would get reduced. But Menka, we have to understand that I'm sure the definition of NPA as one would probably read from the scheme might be a little different from what we are referring to. So let's wait for the judgment.